The part one is done. The full time whistle on the group stage has sounded, and for some, the dream of world glory is now one step closer. Well, for others, they'll be going home, having long, hard looks at themselves, and will be wondering where it all went wrong and what they can do to be better. The World Cup group stage this time was always going to be a little bit controversial, with the expansion, but there was just enough drama, just enough talking points to still keep us talking, and just enough meat on the bones to keep us satisfied with the group stage in spite of this expansion. For some continents, they shone bright, for others, the continent lights went dim. Hi, I'm the Football Otaku, and welcome to episode 3 of World Cup Weekly, where I talk about all things World Cup in North America. If you guys are loving the content, don't forget to like, to share, and subscribe. And of course, I'll be going through each continent and how they'll be feeling, their performances, the good and the bad. Enough talk, let's get started. Starting with the host continent. The hosts are doing the most. The hosts are doing the most. It's been a pretty half and half ending to the group stage for CONCACAF. Really not much to talk about. The three hosts were already through, USA and Mexico. Canada, though, did eventually seal their place into the knockout stage for the very first time, but they did it in the back end of a defeat. They were defeated 2-0 by Switzerland at home in Vancouver, while Mexico and USA had already secured top spot in the groups, but both of them, USA would be beaten by an outgoing Turkey, but again, a game of very little consequence, while Mexico would give their group stage a phenomenal ending, winning against Czechia at their home at the Azteca. A comfortable 2-0 win for El Tri will see them top the group, and most importantly, they will play the first 2 games of the knockout round at home in Mexico City, which is so important. And if you know the history of the Mexican national team at the World Cup, you will know how important it is to play those 2 games, the last 32 and most importantly the last 16 at the Azteca, in front of their own fans, in their own environment, in their own country. For the USA, also winning the group means that they'll get to play the rest of the tournament in America. But for Canada, though, they haven't won their group, which means unfortunately they'll have to leave home and play their last 16 game or their knockout stage in America. Sadly for the other 3 CONCACAF teams, the road ended here. We all knew Haiti were going home. We all sort of knew Panama were going home as well, and sadly for Curaçao, their adventure, despite their brave draw against Ecuador, would end with defeat against Ivory Coast. But it's not all doom and gloom. They've brought much needed color and competitiveness of the World Cup, competitiveness that we didn't really expect. They were very competitive. They were not the pushovers that people sort of were expecting from them. So as well with Haiti, they gave Morocco a game, but and for Panama, they were quite unfortunate. No goals, 3 defeats, quite unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. So for CONCACAF, it's a 50% success. 3 teams went through, the 3 that we expected to go through, but sadly 3 will be going out as well. So not all doom and gloom for CONCACAF, and not a lot of surprises. So from one half of the Americas, we go down south to a continent that is all the more improving in this competition, CONMEBOL South America. Oh yeah, they're hitting their stride now. Looks like they're beating the fraud allegations. It was a slow start for CONMEBOL at this World Cup. With Brazil and Argentina, I'm not gonna say Argentina, but Brazil, Paraguay starting really, real slow, but they've gone really, really strong in the group. Brazil have definitely starting to peak at the right time. They scored a good win over Scotland that sees them through to the last 32. They're starting to grow, they're starting to be efficient, they're starting to get in their groove, and starting to play a lot more comfortably as well. Argentina, of course, being the continent's leading light, 3 wins from 3, victory over Jordan sees them win the group as well. Colombia as well, able to get a draw over Portugal, that sees them through as well. While for Paraguay, they settled for a draw against the Socceroos. So they're through as well, but the only sort of dim light is Uruguay, and they're a team that's been absolutely disappointing. La Celeste have been absolutely disappointing. They're beaten by Spain, but drawing to Saudi and Cape Verde means that they're out of the competition. They're actually the first team from CONMEBOL to go home from the World Cup, and it's been a shameful performance from Marcelo Bielsa's men. I mean, I saw them against Spain. I really didn't give them much of a chance against Spain, especially I felt that against Cape Verde and against Saudi, they should have picked up 3 points, knowing that into the toughest game of the group, they would be, even if they didn't have a chance of progression, they would at least, they'd have a chance of progression, but just never really got going, and just you could see the lack of emotional discipline and the lack of sort of tactical discipline as well, especially after they went 1-0 down. They showed a real lack of discipline, a real lack of togetherness, and really petered out of the tournament, so much so that their private jet home was cancelled and they flew home on commercial. I mean, it was like a humiliation ritual. It was absolutely disappointing. It was absolutely poor showing from this Uruguay team, and it has a lot of soul searching and introspection that needs to be had amongst the Uruguayan side, and especially of Marcelo Bielsa. I mean, a coach who's been highly rated now has had a disastrous World Cup showing, and from there on in for Uruguay, it looks like it's going to be very dark times ahead for them. But other than that, a lot of the teams went through. A big shout out to Ecuador for scoring a last minute winner against Germany. They really needed that victory to qualify as at least one of the wild cards. They made it through. They were 1-0 down inside 2 minutes, but were able to put in a valiant performance in New York to get past the 4-time winners. And you can tell that they're starting to build momentum now heading into the knockout phase. It's not going to be an easy knockout phase for the Condors, as I like to nickname them, but they are safe. They are through, and they'll still be carrying the flag for South America. I mean, for CONMEBOL, they definitely look like they've arrived. 5 out of the 6 sides are through now to the knockout phase, and they're really starting to acclimatize. They're really starting to get used to it, the tournament now, and they're really starting to show themselves as I expected they would. Heading into the knockout stage, and really starting to acclimatize and take ownership of this tournament as I expected they would. From the passion from South America all the way to the precision of UEFA and Europe, and let's see how well they've been getting on this week in the World Cup. Not bad. I mean, of course UEFA have the most entries, so of course it's gonna be a lot of them making through. I mean, but 13 out of 16 isn't that bad. I mean, not bad at all. The teams that did go out though were teams that really underperformed, teams we expected so much from. I mean, Scotland, for all of their fans, for all of their passion and bluster, really didn't. I mean, I felt that defeat to Morocco really was what knocked the stuffing out of them. I mean, they knew the final game against Brazil was always going to be difficult, and sadly that gulf in quality showed as Brazil swept them aside, and we really felt for Scotland. It was finishing 3rd with 2 defeats, negative goal difference. Wasn't really always going to be a good look on the wild cards, and unfortunately results around them would see the Scots going home. But the other 2 defeats, the other 2 sort of eliminations, Czechia, wildly disappointing, a wildly disappointing showing. I mean, already they'd had the frustration of dropping 5 points from winning margins. I mean, they led against South Korea and lost, led against South Africa and drew, and knowing that their campaign hinged on practically doing the unbeatable, which is beating Mexico at the Azteca, they stood no chance. They were swiped away 3-0. Really stood no chance. It was a frustrating end to the tournament. They had finished bottom of the group. I think they're the only European side. No, they were one of 2 European sides to finish bottom of the group. We'll talk about the other later. And that sadly would see them have sweeping reforms. Patrick Schick has retired from the national side. Their coach has recently left the national team job. And it's a World Cup of deep regret, deep disappointment for the Czech Republic. Turkey as well will be leaving this tournament with massive disappointment. I mean, a team that a lot of people were shouting dark horse again like it was Euro 2020. Flattered to deceive, lost to Paraguay, lost to Australia. They're already out of the tournament. I mean, they can still go home with some pride. They beat the US, but I mean, the tournament was already done by then for Turkey. Top performers, of course, are France. They're just motoring on. I keep telling myself super teams don't win World Cups, but the things this French side are doing should be illegal. I mean, they absolutely they've actually been the top performers at this World Cup. England as well looked really, really strong as well in their group. And Germany finally were able to get past the group stage for the first time in 8 years. I mean, you could see by the relief. I mean, I mentioned this last week, the relief. Although they lost to Ecuador, they've still won the group. But generally, it's been a good group stage for UEFA. I mean, of course, the numbers game was going to favor them, but still, I mean, still a large chunk of European nations still in this competition. 13 of 16 will be in the last 32, but from one shining light all the way down to probably the brightest shining light, Africa in this group stage. In the words of Akon and Kerry Hilson, oh Africa, Mama Africa, look at your children. 10 of them entered this World Cup, quite controversially, and 9 of them will be making it through to the last 16. To the last 32, sorry. Absolutely phenomenal from the continent, and it shows, and the range of qualification has been very impressive from teams that were pretty comfortable in their qualifications, like the likes of your Moroccos, to teams that really needed to lock in those big moments and survived. South Africa being one of them. In a win or die situation against South Korea, they scored a crucial 1-0 win, and that 1-0 win will see them through to the knockout stage for the very first time. It's their first ever win against non-European opposition at the World Cup, and it's a huge result for Bafana Bafana. Probably one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic, Bafana Bafana victory at the World Cup. It might not have the same juice as Shabalala and Mexico and Soccer City in 2010, but in terms of what this goal meant for our history, it's probably right up there, if not even more. Algeria and Austria, of course, it wasn't necessarily the disgrace of Gijón, but more like the chaos of Kansas City, as they drew 3-3 with Austria, and you could say the two teams were roughly playing the tournament rather than playing the match. I mean, a lot of conspiracy theories have gone around about that game, about who was doing what. Egypt as well, also they're through to the knockout phase for the very first time. A huge result, victory over New Zealand, and then eventually holding their own against Iran to qualify for the knockout stage for the first time. And great scenes. I mean, seeing Mo Salah in public celebrating with the fans. I mean, for someone who's had a very checkered legacy with the Egyptian national side, not really through any fault of his own, but someone who's had a really checkered history with the national side in terms of achievements, to finally lead Egypt to this part of the World Cup really now means that he's cemented his own legacy. Senegal as well, they're through as well. I mean, after 2 very bad defeats, they needed to get past Iraq and were able to do enough, win heavily 5-0 against Iraq to see themselves through to the knockout phase. I mean, the only disappointment was Tunisia, but I mean, the less we say about them, the better, on and off the pitch. All I'm going to say is that they lost to the Netherlands, the end, and finished bottom and laid an egg. That's all we ever have to say about Tunisia ever again in this World Cup. And DRC, who yet again produced another moment of magic to qualify for their first ever knockout stage against Uzbekistan. They needed 2 goals to progress, and they got them. They were 1-0 down, they were 1-1, results that were very undesirable, but they were able to lock in, and Johan Wissa, who's become a bit of an internet celebrity in America, was able to slot the penalty to get the Leopards into the knockout phase for the very first time, triggering wild scenes back in the DRC. Like I said, it's a team of fighters, a team that have had one of the hardest, not the hardest road to get to this tournament. I mean, finishing second to Senegal, the quote-unquote African champions, beating Nigeria and Cameroon in the African repechage, and then a tense victory over Jamaica just to get here. It's been a hard road for Sebastian Desabr's men, and they've gone on and made history going to the knockout phase, and definitely will be fearing no one in that part of the competition. So, like I mentioned, and Cape Verde, how could you ignore Cape Verde? We always knew Cape Verde were gonna be a problem. We always knew Cape Verde had potential in them, but I mean, 3 wonderful draws against two of the World Cup elites, or 2 of the elite nations in international football. Against Saudi Arabia, they hung on, they dug deep, got the draw, and were enough to see them finish second in the group and progress to the knockout stage in their debut tournament. I mean, it's a wonderful fairy tale for Cape Verde. They were always a nation on the rise. I mean, seeing them as someone who follows African football, we all knew Cape Verde were sort of one of those teams that sort of in the A or B tier, not necessarily a giant of the game, but they're a team on the rise, and they've learned to be able to annoy and irritate the top sides, especially at the Africa Cup of Nations and even in World Cup qualifying. But nothing could have prepared us for this incredible World Cup run. And now they're into the last 16, and that means the last 32, and they will be very much ready for who they will face. So from these joyous scenes in Praia, Johannesburg, Kinshasa, Cairo, and even Accra, Africa has definitely 9 out of 10, the best conversion rates the best conversion rates out of any of the other confederations at this tournament. 9 out of 10, 90% teams. Fantastic performance from Africa across the board, and it really has gotten us woken up. It's really woken people up and really slapped the face of some of the biggest critics of this competition. From one tournament where the light has shone bright to one where it has dimmed considerably, let's go east and talk about Asia. Oh, Asia. It started so brightly, so brightly. Undefeated in the first week of the World Cup. You're doing so well, and it's all fallen apart. West Asia absolutely fell at this World Cup, as all of the teams from the MENA were all sent packing. Qatar really had no chance. After that 6-0 defeat to Canada, Qatar really stood no chance, and they were duly sent home by Bosnia and Herzegovina. Saudi, again, sent home packing after the defeat to Spain. They really had no chance, and despite a lot of the investment going into their league, sadly couldn't even beat Cape Verde, a team from a population of about 150,000 and 10 islands, a country where the diaspora is bigger than those on the actual island from the homeland. I mean, for 2 countries who have got substantial backing from both home and foreign forces, to see them being woefully sent home from another World Cup is quite, shocking. Proceeds to put hand on mouth. Iran, of course, were very much unfortunate victims of consequence, and sadly they were sent home. And for the only standing lights now are arguably the biggest team, the best team, the team I feel that should be back more in the region, Japan, and the Socceroos, Australia. They were able to draw with Paraguay, and that saw them advance. Japan, on the other hand, still kept their silky football going, and really were the ones carrying Asia. Although they got a draw this week against Sweden, still they were able to progress through to the knockout phase. But that nothing compares to what is probably the biggest World Cup crash out of this, or definitely any tournament we've seen in a while. We have to talk about South Korea. I mean, their defeat, of course, to South Africa was bad enough as is, but the reaction at home is absolutely insane. I mean, for many people would need to understand, some people, online have had certain agendas, they've had certain theories that couldn't be more incorrect about the crash out that's been happening in South Korea, and really it's been absolutely insane. I mean, just the match itself, Ryungbong Bo's game plan was absolutely insane, benching the star man, Heung-min Son, your captain, your talismanic leader, the face of football in your country, putting him on the bench for such an important game, the biggest game South Korea have played in 3.5 years. Putting him on the bench was such an insane decision. I don't know what tactic is there in world football that involves putting your player on the bench, but it was a gamble that didn't work out against South Africa. They were overwhelmed, really couldn't keep Bafana quiet in the midfield, and were losing that midfield battle in terms of influence and in terms of turning the game in your favor. And in the second half, when they did go 1-0 down, they started spamming crosses in the box, and that's a good thing because that is South Africa's weakness. I always feel that's our biggest weakness, is spamming crosses into the box, crosses, set pieces. But the problem is, you subbed out Kim Min Jae in the 60th or 70th minute. Definitely after hydration break, you subbed out Kim Min Jae, who was South Korea's biggest aerial threat. And since then, they were just spamming crosses, hoping for something to happen, when it really didn't at the end. And South Korea would eventually, with the results around them, be eliminated from the World Cup. And like I mentioned, the crash out at home has probably been one of the most insane crash outs we've seen, probably at any World Cup. I mean, Hyungmin Bo has been essentially treated as a persona non grata in the country, and for many people who don't understand this, there's been a deep problem in South Korean football. I can make a video of this on my own. Guys, let me know in the comments if you kind of want a video explaining South Korea. Of course, there'll probably be other people who live in South Korea who can explain it a lot better, but I mean, if you want to hear my voice talk about it, then why not? But it really has caused a huge uproar in the country, and even existential crisis, so much so that the president of a country is being involved in this situation. But in holistic view, for Asia, it has been a terrible group stage. I mean, 7 teams entered into this group stage, and now only 2 survive. The worst conversion rate. And now Japan and Australia stand together with one last stand, and it's not going to be a matter of if they survive, but it's just going to be a matter of when will they fall. It's quite a shame, and the AFC really have to have a look at themselves and wonder if they're hedging their bet on the right horse, because from what I'm seeing, the answer to that question seems to be no, and they're being punished for it on the global stage. And that's it. That is the end of the video, guys. The group stage is in the books. How did your team perform? How did your confederation perform? Is your confederation beating the fraud allegations, or are they still on trial? Thanks, guys, for sticking around. If you're an absolute warrior, if you have, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and look out for more uploads. I, of course, will be linking up, posting more parts of my link up with my friend Asali as we talk about the group stage as well. Look out for those uploads when they come along, but until then, it's been your boy, the Football Otaku, and never forget, real football always wins. Check you on the flip side. Deuces, bye bye.